So what's interesting is this great statement. The fun from games basically arises out of mastery. It arises out of comprehension. It's the act of solving puzzles that makes games fun. In other words, with games, learning is the drug. So I hate to take it, but basically games are just learning tools. So we're just learning to do something over and over again. Whether it's how to kill this Goomba, or things like that from Super Mario. Basically, we're just learning in a game, and that's what we find so much fun. So if games are so engaging, then how can we use them to make other things engaging? And can we take these fun elements of games and apply them to real life activities that might not be that motivating to begin with? For example, like taking the stairs as opposed to the escalator. And can we use these to make them more engaging? And so this is where we're starting to see this concept of gamification emerge. However, it's interesting, the framing of non-game activities as a game isn't really a new concept. If you ever grew up in the 70s or the 80s, you may have heard of the concept of serious games, which have been out since that kind of time. And you may have played this game as well, which is the Oregon Trail. It was first released in 1971, and it was a video game. It was made by a couple of teacher aides, I think, at the time, and it was mainly made to teach school children about the realities of pioneer life on the Oregon Trail, such as getting dysentery, which isn't much fun at all. So I can imagine, according to this game. So that was released back in 1971. It was a game and it was educational. It was made to educate young people. Also, Reader Rabbit, this one, classic game. I used to play this. It was released in 1986. It aimed to teach basic reading and spelling skills through a game. We also had this one, which was a hugely popular game. Probably one of the most well-known serious games out there. This is Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? And it was a game that was released in 1985. And it was actually released with the World Almanac at the time as well, the Book of Facts, which encouraged learning of geography and world facts, but it presented it in this kind of fun environment. So those are kind of serious games. And on top of that, game-like feedback and rewards have also been around as well in real life. So I don't know if you were a scout, you may receive badges for doing particular tasks as a scout. Also, if you ever go flying, you may get frequent flyer points for undertaking, purchasing Qantas, for example. Every time I go for a coffee, I get a stamp, so I also get this kind of reward for going to a particular place, and after I get 9 coffees, I get a free one. Flybys, every time I go to Coles, they ask me if I have a Flybys card, and you get points for that. And also, my mum used to play this fun game. Even my mum used to kind of add these game elements to real life. She played a game called The Quiet Game in the car, and it was basically you had to be quiet, and the first one who made it always lost the game. So I didn't really know it was a game. I did know it was a game, but yeah, it's interesting. We use these kind of game techniques to encourage people. Even Mary Poppins has been gamifying stuff since 1964. Because you remember, what's that line from the song? In every job that must be done, there is an element of what you find, the one that snap, the job's a game. Right? So even Mary Poppins has been gamifying stuff since early on. So why has this term gamification only kind of spawned over the last few years? And how did it become big all of a sudden? Well, there's a couple of changes which have helped spur the concept of gamification on. First of all, video games have become hugely popular, as we just talked about before. But secondly, we've seen a change in technology like no other over the last decade. So first of all, social networks have become immensely popular. People are sharing more and more information about themselves freely as well. We also have a lot of access to analytical data about our websites, what people are doing, what they're visiting, what pages they're clicking. So we can use this kind of information to identify engagement issues, and we can also use this data to trigger various game elements on our website. On top of that, mobile devices have become big as well. We're carrying these powerful devices in our pocket, which are capable of huge processing power. The connectivity is there, these devices are always on, they're cheap, and they have sensors in them. These sensors can also then access information or build a picture about our kind of activities. And we can use this sensor information then also to create kind of games around them. So for example, this particular device, it can pick up location, it can pick up movement, it can pick up a whole range of different things. And even the mobile web browsers on this as well have access to that information as well. So you have actually access to things like location and the accelerometer, so you can do some really interesting things with it. So with these combined, it means we can capture a lot more information about people, so we can build a picture about the activities which they undertake, whether it be using applications or our websites. And this opens up the world to letting us create game-like structures around these captured activities, enforcing these rules, using the information which we capture. And this becomes a really important part of this whole idea of gamification. So it means games are infiltrating many different parts of our life. So I'll give you an example. So when I woke up this morning, I strap on my Fitbit. So this is a little device, it's a little accelerometer device, and it basically counts my steps during the day. So it can tell me how many steps I've done. You know, I'm trying to reach 10,000 each day. Now on their website, you can actually then compare yourself to a whole bunch of other people. It provides you statistics. It's also got a leaderboard there on the right-hand side. And you can also unlock badges and achievements for doing so. I had to pick a week in which I was coming first, but generally this isn't the case. And you can see just on the right-hand side, it shows you how many steps you've taken and your rank compared to other people as well. And you can see the badges underneath it there. So it's a website that compares, uses this sensor information to compare your weekly step count to friends and to motivate you to undertake more steps. So then I go for a morning run, and for that I use Runkeeper to track my run. So this provides a similar service to Fitbit in the way that it can kind of use the application to track your activities. So using an inbuilt GPS sensor in the phone, I basically start it and it can measure things like distance, time, and speed. And on top of that, it also includes game modes. So then I can compare myself as well to all my friends to see how I'm doing in terms of physical exercise compared to them. And also, if they're lazy, I can cheer them on, or people can cheer me on if I'm lazy. Say if I don't really feel like a run because it's cold, it's winter, I might pull out Zombies Run instead. Now, Zombies Run is pretty much the same thing as Runkeeper, but it adds zombies to the mix. So, it adds, first of all, a narrative. So there's an ongoing story, so every time you go out and go running, another chapter of the story is revealed. And also, you get chased by zombies when you go running. I'm not joking. You'll be running and all of a sudden they're like, zombie horde approaching, and you'll hear zombies breathing down your neck as you run. And there's nothing more motivating than being chased by zombies. So if you get, basically you literally have to speed up in real life. And the GPS sensor can work out if you're running faster and faster. So if you do outrun them, then you're safe. And if they get you, you lose all your items. So you have to start again, which is a little bit annoying. So that's Zombies Run. It is terrifying, but it is a great way in which to motivate people to do exercise. Okay, so I come home from my run, and then I pull up the Chore Wars website. Now, Chore Wars is basically a website that helps track my household chores in a fun way. So I've set it up with my housemates because we're all giant nerds, and I can just see if there's anything that I need to do in terms of chores before leaving. So we can see like moweth the backyard, or moweth the front yard, relieving the bin, or vacuuming the carpet, whichever one wants to do. And for these tasks, you can apply experience. It's pretty much like Dungeons and Dragons. You play Dungeons and Dragons, you create a character, different stats and attributes for it, and you can undertake these basic quests. You get experience points, you can fight monsters, and you get knowledge as well. So it's fantastic. Cool, so I'll then head into university, I'll get to the office. Once I arrive there, I'll check in using Foursquare. Foursquare we talked about before, it shares your location and you get to badges, and if you check in more than anyone else, you become the mayor of a particular place. And then I'll sit down to do some admin work, and everyone loves admin work and emails and stuff like that. So I might pull open this game, which helps me out with my emails. It's called the email game. Has anyone heard of this one before? It's basically a way to encourage you to do your emails quickly, because there's nothing worse than spending hours and hours on emails when you could be doing proper work. So I'll put a quick video to share with you of how it works, and just an overview. So that's the email game. So you use that to encourage you to do your email quickly. So let's have a quick recap. We had Fitbit, we had Runkeeper, we had Zombies Run, we had Chore Wars, we had Foursquare, and we had the email game. And that is all before 10 a.m. in the morning. So you can see that games are infiltrating many different aspects of our life and the apps that we use on a daily basis. So this kind of gives you an idea behind the concept of gamification. Now, I define gamification as framing real activities and tasks like a video game in order to make them more engaging and more motivating. But basically, gamification is just another form of persuasive design. Sorry, I noticed all of you taking these photos. I'll stick the slides up on SlideShare after, so if you miss anything in terms of these photos, you can get them later. But yeah, gamification is basically a form of persuasive design. We're persuading or encouraging people to undertake certain activities. And gamification is becoming more and more popular. We're seeing regular applications such as these. So here we've got a to-do list on the left-hand side called Remember Milk. We've got a run tracker in the middle, and we've got Find My Friends on the right. Turn into applications such as this. So we're seeing more game elements being embedded. So exactly the same functionality for these applications, but people are adding game elements to make certain activities and tasks more engaging. So gamification can be applied in very simple ways to a particular action that you want to encourage. So for example, here's LinkedIn, and what's interesting is this one is cited quite a lot, but in order to encourage people to fill out their profile on their LinkedIn account, they'll actually use this progress bar just there at the top, and it shows you how complete your profile is. Now, humans are generally completionists, and this kind of progress bar is always visible on the right-hand side. So it's kind of encouraging you always to fill out your user profile. What's good about this particular design as well is that they also provide profile completion tips, and they also give each of these tips a certain weight or value as well, so you see which ones are worth more, which kind of encourages people to do certain tasks in different ways. So it could be quite simple gamification in this respect, so just embedding it into this one aspect of a website, or like chalkboards, gamification could be quite complex. So where entire activities and interfaces have a range of different designs and areas being influenced by gamification. I'm just going to share with you a couple. So in terms of sustainability, so in the area of sustainability, we've seen something like missing car wings, which basically takes information from your car and then displays it on a website. So you log in and it shows you the information about how you were driving, and then it compares this with other people, and it compares your ranking and how sustainable you're driving with other people as well. Here's another sustainability example. This is the Bottle Bank Arcade. It's a great example, a great video online you'll have to check out. It basically makes recycling fun by turning it into a game. In terms of exercise, so with Nike Plus, you can use a pedometer or the fuel wristband to track the exercise in which you do. And then you can, on the website, unlock trophies depending on your accomplishments, and also compare yourself with your friends as well. This one's a really good one. So this is the Health Month website, created by Buster Benson, and it's all about lifestyle. So it's about improving your lifestyle. So it uses game elements as well. You pick a number of habits that you want to undertake over the next month. You track your progress, and you compare yourself to others as well. In terms of education, this is an incredibly popular website. It's called the Khan Academy. It provides a range of free educational videos and materials for people to basically learn online. And it also includes badges, which can be unlocked for completing particular tasks in the application. Now, if you ever wanted to learn Objective-C, this is the place to do it. This is a great one which I found out about a couple of months ago. It's called Code School, and it basically, does anyone get a reference? It's basically presented like an old Super Mario Brothers game. So you go into a particular level, it provides you with an overview, and then you start coding, and you've got a little guy who runs across the top as you complete different tasks. So it teaches you Objective-C in the browser, which is really cool. I'm sure many of you have used Stack Overflow before. There's a fantastic article that came out this week. Stack Overflow's been out for 5 years now, and since the beginning they've included these badges or these little points which you can get in terms of when you help out people or provide answers to particular problems. And this has motivated people hugely to contribute to the website as well. In terms of finance, the Mint website allows you to bring all your finances together into one area, and it promotes various beneficial finance-related activities, such as saving money each month. And to do this, it uses points and badges as well. So you receive points every month for doing certain things, like getting a high-yield savings account, for example. This one's a fun one. It's called Epic Win. It's basically a to-do list, and it presents it with experience points, and you can get certain points in terms of intelligence, strength, etc., depending on what the task is that you do. Clout, I don't know if you've heard of this one, but it's basically it's gamifying social influence. So it shows your social influence on the web, basically. So it takes a stream from your Twitter, from your Facebook, and other profiles which you hook it up to, and it can give you a score. I don't know how they generate a score, but they do, and it shows you your influence compared to other people. And they've even gamified gamification. So this is Leaderboarded, which is a website which shows you the leaders in terms of gamification. I am on there somewhere, not in the top 4 yet, but we'll see how we go. So it's kind of Inception, you know, where they use social impact and clout scores in order to kind of gamify gamification. And it's interesting, as technology continues to evolve, with new sensors and interface like Google Glass coming out, we may see even more of an integration of game elements with everyday life. So I'll show you, maybe this is a hint of the future. The future might be like using something like Google Glass. So that's just a small snippet of a fantastic video called Sight. You should check it out. It's a lot creepier after that because then they gamify a date, like a guy going out on a date, which is interesting to say the least. But you can see this may be a hint of the future in how games might be integrated in order to motivate us in everyday life. So this is the notion of turning everyday life into a game. It's a great idea, but can it actually work? So let's talk about the second thing I want to discuss tonight, and that's design gamification. So first up, let's play a game. So I want you to have a quick look and tell me, what do these things have in common? So I'm going to present you a couple of applications. You're going to look at them and you're going to tell me what you think these have in common. You ready? Okay, first one. Foursquare. Have a quick look. Got it? Okay, next one. Bam, Fitbit. So we saw this one before. Game elements on the right-hand side. Next one. Runkeeper. Cool. We haven't seen a theme yet. Education, yeah. Khan Academy. And finally, Nike Plus. Okay, what do these have in common? Someone mentioned leaderboards and badges. Yes. Anything else? Friends? Yes. Friends? Measurements, yeah. So measurements, analytics, things like that. So these kind of have in common looking for these 4 things: points, badges, leaderboards, and levels. If you guessed any one of those, then you were correct. There's been a little bit of a common theme with gamification implementations over the last couple of years, and this is kind of known as the gamification blueprint. It regularly involves the use of these 4 elements: points, badges, leaderboards, and levels. And these will often be applied to many different websites and many different gamification examples. And it's mainly thanks to Foursquare, because this was one of the early gamification examples that came out. It became hugely popular. And these were used and integrated in Foursquare and have since become quite popular in any kind of gamification implementation. They're rather easy to integrate into your website, so you simply need a way of identifying certain behavior, so using analytics. And you need to understand kind of behaviors that you want to encourage, such as visits on a website, commenting on a website. And then once the computer records that this particular action has occurred, you can then reward them with points or a badge, and then you can show them in comparison to other people as well, using a leaderboard. So these kind of elements have been quite popular over the last few years. And there are even platforms out there, like Badgerload, for example, which can implement these or integrate these particular elements into your website for a small fee. However, there is something a little bit flawed with this way of thinking. If we look at these elements, they are primarily all about rewards. So by that thinking, having a particular behavior we want to encourage and applying a reward to it, we then get fun, right? However, this is often far from the truth, because behavior plus rewards doesn't equal fun, not necessarily. It's missing something. If it was the truth, then this would be the most fun game in the world. So here we have a game, it's called Progress Wars. Progresswars.com, you can check it out. But basically you have a behavior, so which is clicking the button, and then you're rewarded with points and levels for doing that. So let me quickly show you how it works. So our first mission is to annoy soybeans. And we can perform perform this mission by clicking the button. So we click the button, check it out, the progress bar increases. Click the button, click the button, click the button, click the button, click the button. Bam! We level up. Excellent. And we get a new mission, which is to rob the Ninja Queen. And so we do that. We click the button, etc., etc. That's how that works. So what's missing from this equation? What's missing? Challenge. Yeah, I know, right? It's not fun at all. And anyway, and if we look back at this particular quote, if we think back to what fun is in a game, fun arises from mastery, it arises from comprehension, it's the act of solving puzzles that makes games fun. What is the puzzle in that previous, or this example? How do we click the button, right? So yeah, there's no real challenge with this. Maybe if we were clicking it with our foot or something like that, we could create a challenge, but the challenge of just clicking the button is not that exciting. So how can we design engaging experiences then? So let's have a quick look at motivation theory. So we're going to go into a bit of psychology here. So the first, if we talk about different types of motivation, the first is extrinsic motivation, which describes motivation to do something for an external reason. And the other type of motivation is intrinsic motivation. So when an activity is performed for the internal satisfaction of doing an activity itself. So if we talk about extrinsic motivation, for example, you might have money, you might be motivated by money, or you might be motivated by status or by power to undertake a particular task, right? Now this is interesting because this kind of relates back to what we saw before with that equation. So if we have a behavior plus reward, it actually is equal to extrinsic motivation. But what we want to look at in particular is intrinsic motivation. So when someone is intrinsically motivated, they will undertake an activity for the satisfaction of doing the task itself, right? Because they enjoy the work. For example, reading a book is an example of an intrinsic activity. You can't see it, unfortunately. It's a little bit dark. But there's a guy playing video games in the background here. And so the act of playing games is also considered an enjoyable, intrinsically satisfying activity on its own. So this intrinsic motivation is at stake when we just use rewards to promote particular actions that are not challenging and that are not fun. So we're just using extrinsic motivation here. And research has shown, I guess, that extrinsic motivation can work to an extent where there is no intrinsic motivation to begin with. So when we're not motivated to do anything at all intrinsically, then extrinsic motivations can work. But where there is intrinsic motivation to begin with, research has also shown that by adding extrinsic motivation or extrinsic rewards, it can have a detrimental effect on the intrinsic motivation that someone had there previously. So for example, for kids who play the piano because they like playing the piano, as soon as you start making them compete against other people, they may lose that intrinsic motivation to play the piano solely for enjoying the task of playing the piano. So what makes a game motivating to play? So we get to look at a little bit of the psychology behind it. So researchers Ryan, Decci, and others hypothesize that games are primarily motivating to the extent that players experience three things. The first is autonomy, which is the choice to play a game and our choice over our actions in a game. The second is competence, so the ability to challenge us within a game. And thirdly, relatedness, so how we can connect to others, or how games encourage us to connect with others as well. So these are three basic psychological needs that promote intrinsic motivation. So let's talk about these three in detail. So we mentioned a difference between work and play before. It's similar to kind of servitude and freedom. So often we work because we have to pay the bills, but we play because we choose to play. Here's a great little cartoon. This guy hates his job. It sucks. So he decides to quit. He says, "This isn't living, damn it, I quit." And then goes to play video games, which is kind of similar. So it kind of shows that there's this difference between being forced to do something and choosing to do something. So the freedom of choice is also super important in game design as well. When the player is given the freedom to make meaningful choices, you can choose what quest you undertake and wow. And you have a range of different ways of distortion of time, and you experience the activity as being intrinsically rewarding, so you enjoy doing it. So these are the factors of a flow experience. So when you're in a state of flow, this is kind of some of the factors that you'll experience. Now, to reach a flow state, you need these particular things. You need a clear goal, so you need something that you're aiming to do. You need progress, so how you're going towards that goal, and you need clear and immediate feedback, which tells you how close you are to reaching that goal. Finally, you need a balance of challenge and skill. So here's just a graph which talks about this relationship between challenge and skill. So you need to have a challenge which is equal to the skill of the person. If the challenge is too high, they become anxious. So for example, if I was to play Nadal in tennis, or Pat Rafter, or someone like that, I am a great tennis player, so the challenge would be very high, I'd become anxious quite quickly. And for, say, Pat Rafter, the challenge would be very low, and even though his skills are very high, so he would become very bored quite quickly. So you need to match the challenge with the particular person in order to reach that state of flow, otherwise they become anxious or bored. And the third thing was relatedness, so the connection with others that games can create. So this is obviously multiplayer games where players can work together or compete against each other. What's interesting is relatedness can also occur in single-player games with AI characters. So you can begin to empathize and to connect with non-human characters in games as well. So these are all super important factors to consider when trying to design a game, and also when trying to design gamification. So with my research, I've come up with a gamification design framework. I'm going to give you a quick overview of how this works, and it has some steps which you can think about when designing gamification for your own experiences. So there's basically 3 steps involved with it. The first one is to identify the activity and the gamification goals, to design the gamification experience, and to obtain feedback and iterate design. It's based off a simple kind of loop or iterative design methodology, and is user-centered as well. So the first one is you identify an activity that may not be that motivating, whether it's exercise, getting through your emails, people visiting your website. You need to ask, first of all, do you really need gamification? Because you may just have heard of gamification and you may think, yeah, gamification is going to be great, it's going to solve everything. But in actual fact, you've got to ask yourself whether you have an engagement problem or a motivation problem to begin with. Is it not something else first? Is it not a usability problem? Is there something which is stopping people from getting up to the sign-up page or to paying for a particular product on your website? So you've got to ask yourself, is it not one of these other things first? And you can undertake some research, some interview surveys, you can look at data analytics to see where people are getting stuck. And if it truly is an engagement or motivation problem, you can then start looking towards maybe gamification. So you need to ask yourself, why is this activity boring? What's missing from it? And this is where we can talk about flow and the conditions for flow and what you need to reach that flow state. So does your activity have clear and interesting goals? Does it have feedback? Does it have interesting and playful mechanics? Does it offer a challenge, progression, mastery, and maybe even some aesthetics and narrative in there as well? You may want to include that. You can then go about determining the goals. So once you've worked out what's missing, you can need to determine the goals, and these goals of the activity that you're trying to promote. So for example, if it's trying to get fit. And you can then turn these goals into metrics, things that you can measure. And you may do that using sensors, or you can also do it using people as well. So for example, you can sense when someone posts something on the website, and you may want to reward that particular activity. Or you may use other users on your website to reward particular activities as well. It can be quite simple. So here's an example of someone gamified their class. They were running an MMO design class, and they simply turned the grades into levels and experience points. And they just did it by pen and paper. So you can even gamify using pen and paper if you want. Then you go about designing the gamification, and you've got to really think of your users as players when you do this. You have to ask, first of all, what do they like as players? Because people in different age brackets and also different sex, if they're male or female, they like different things from their games. And you can also ask what type of player they are. So there's this fantastic grid, which was used for designing virtual worlds and for designing multiplayer games in particular. But what they found were people were generally divided up, or they had these particular qualities when it came to how they played or how they acted upon the world. So this included things such as some people were just killers. They were there to kill other players. That was it. That's all they really wanted to do. Some were achievers. They would go about achieving the particular quests that were there. Some people were just using this game to socialize with other people. They weren't there to finish quests or anything. They just used it as a way in which to socialize. And some people were explorers. They would just go out and explore the land as well to see how far they could get. So, for this, when you also want to think about how you can design like a game as well. You have to take these goals and these elements that are missing from your activity, and you may even consider hiring a game designer as well, or someone who has done gamification before to help you out with the process, because you actually have to think about how you can design this like a game. If you can't afford one, there are some fantastic books out there, such as The Art of Game Design by Jesse Schell, And so there's some other excellent ones out there that I'll put links to up on the Meetup website. And then you have to consider the game design and how it balances with the function of your particular, for example, website, and the usability of your application as well. And then you just need to test and iterate it over and over again. So you need to play test. You actually, you do your own usability tests on your websites, but you actually need to think about play testing it now. And this is really important because you may find particular flaws or dangers with your gamification design. So I want to talk about a couple of dangers which may come up. So first of all, distraction. If you have add game elements to your application, to your website, people may get distracted. They've got a task at hand, you want them to complete the task. If you add game elements, you may get distracted, you may lose track of what you're doing. I remember the original Giant Bomb website. Every time it would reward you with achievements for going to particular pages on their website. You'd be surfing their website, and then all of a sudden an achievement would pop up in the right-hand corner. You're like, oh, achievement, okay, I'll go quit this. And then all of a sudden you're completing achievements all over the web page, and you've forgotten what you're originally doing and preparing for a presentation that you have to give. So it can be distracting in that sense. Also, games get boring. They get boring after a while. It just happens. Once we work out how to finish a game, how to complete a challenge, we get bored of it. For example, who plays tic-tac-toe anymore? Any of you play tic-tac-toe? Maybe if you have small kids. But once you know how to cause a draw in tic-tac-toe, you lose, kind of that fun or that challenge. There's no challenge to it anymore. You can draw every single time. So then you move on to bigger and better things like World of Warcraft. So games do get boring after a little while. So you've got to consider, if games get boring, and if games are the reason that people are interacting with your website, what's going to happen when they get bored? Are they going to continue to use your website, or are they going to stop interacting with it? Also, cheating. This is something I found in some of my research that I did, is that people will actually cheat if you add game elements to your application or your website. You've got to consider the repercussions of this as well. For example, there's a forum. Okay, so this is OzGamers, the OzGamers website, and they added achievements to their forum in order to encourage people to participate. And as soon as they added achievements, bam, a new forum was open called Achievement Grind, bottom right-hand corner, just there, and people were just posting and replying in order to get their achievement count up. So people were just abusing the system. So it had these repercussions on the website as well, in the sense that these totally unrelated forums were being opened, and people were not using it for the original purpose of the website as well. And this also leads into ethics and real-life dangers as well. You probably won't get too much of this if you're just gamifying websites, but if you gamify other activities, so for example, there is some research which has been done into gamifying taking your medication at time, right? So if you decide to cheat that, for example, you could have dangerous repercussions. Also, on a sad note, there was an application called Strava, which was, it's still available, it's still out there, but someone was trying to beat their best. It has game elements where you can see your best time compared to other people when you go cycling. Someone was trying to beat their best time and they crashed and died, unfortunately. And so people tried to sue Strava as well because of the death of someone in their family. So you need to be really careful when you think about these game elements and what kind of results they will have on the application. So a little bit about my research. My research is based at looking at young drivers. So they're at a risk of death and injury from road crashes. And so we're trying to encourage them to undertake a wide range of practice. So if any of you have kids or are learning to drive, you'll know that they need to undertake 100 hours of supervised learning practice. And they record this in this particular logbook. It's a physical logbook they carry around with them from car to car. And they have to fill out these fields, so up to 14 different fields every single time they go driving. So it's a little bit tedious. There's also a potential for falsifying data as well. So we saw this as an opportunity to make a mobile app, which basically improved upon this logging process. So that's it there. And to this, we then added game elements to motivate good practice habits in learner drivers. We made it a road trip, basically a virtual road trip, which learners could undertake around Australia. So just quickly, using the gamification design framework as an example, we identified the activity and gamification goals. So the goals for this particular app that we were creating is to encourage learners to practice, or to spread practice over the entire year in which they're a learner driver, to practice beyond 100 hours, because 100 hours is just a number, we want people to practice more than that, and to encourage learners to drive in a variety of different circumstances. We had a bunch of different sensing options available to us, so we could look at location, their distance, their speed. and we could get things like weather as well using the Yahoo API. And then we designed the game experience by understanding the player, and also by using aesthetics, story, technology, and mechanics, the kind of framework. And it was interesting, the players for this, well, the users for this range from 16 to 24-year-olds generally, and there were males and females. So we had a very large audience that we were developing for. So it meant the design could encompass a wide range of different things, different players. So artwork was how we had to keep the artwork gender neutral and include a range of game elements that appealed to a large audience. We had some design challenges as well. The first one, it's illegal to use a phone while driving, so they couldn't play the game while driving, right? So that was a clear and obvious design challenge that we had. The second one was we don't want to encourage dangerous driving, so competitive game elements need to be designed really carefully because we don't want people to go out speeding and driving more and more in dangerous circumstances. Also, cheating could be an issue if it encourages them to falsify their logbook data. So we had to think about these design challenges. So we created this virtual road trip. They basically, for every kilometre they drive in real life, they get a kilometre in the virtual road trip. They can get coins if they undertake specific manoeuvres, and they can upgrade their car as well. And they can also see where their friends were on the road trip. So we still have a little bit of competition involved. Then we undertook a whole bunch of usability, playability, and field testing. And we found a bunch of issues, such as for the usability testing is super important. And also, in this sense, playability testing as well, because you are creating a game. If you're making a gamification experience, you're creating a game, even if it's just something tiny by adding points and badges. So it's going to be enjoyable for the people. So we did playability testing. We found out that people didn't understand the game to begin with, the first version, because we had fuel, you had to purchase fuel, then to drive around the road trip. So we stripped it back to the basics. And we also realized that the game elements shouldn't be the primary element of the application. Some people just want to record their hours and they might not have that much support. I don't know, with achievements, Bronson was talking about you could talk to the developer and get quite good feedback from them. They may not do exactly what you need, and they often do have this kind of one-size-fits-all. So again, they may use the gamification blueprint because that's what's quite used quite a lot in terms of these websites. Finally, you can build your own from scratch, right? But the issue with this is that, well, the benefits for building your own from scratch is that it's going to be tailored to your users and your problems. So you can build one tailored to your specific demographic and to the problems or the engagement problems that you have. You can go beyond the gamification blueprint, and you can be as small or as large as you like as well. And there'll be nothing out there like it before, so you may not use badges, for example, and may do something completely different and interesting. The downfalls of making your own, obviously, is that time. It can be expensive in terms of time and money. Cool, so that is everything I want to talk about tonight. Let's wrap it up and talk about basically 3 things I want you to take away from this. Gamification is a word which is going to be around, even if you don't like the word. It's around to stay, and people are going to be talking about it for the next 10 years or so. But you've got to take away that it's more than just badges, so you've got to design it like a good game. You've got to think of your people or your users as players, and also what's going to happen if you add game elements to your website in terms of things like cheating, distractions, and stuff like that. And it's super easy, so start trying it. So I curate a weekly newsletter called gamificationweekly.com. It's excellent, if I do say so myself, but it basically just collects all the latest information and news about gamification, things like research, events, comics as well, and we'll send you out a newsletter every Friday that we're looking at tomorrow. And we also run a gamification meetup, which we'll have Bronson actually talking at next about WordPress achievements as well. Cool, so that is it. There's my details there if you want to contact me. So just my website, email address, newsletter, and Twitter handle. Feel free to get in touch with me. If you're doing gamification, I would love to hear about it. So, if you want to run something by me, talk to me about an idea or anything like that, or just want to know a bit more about anything that I talked about tonight, feel free to get in touch with me. That's it. Otherwise, yeah, thank you.